be a contender this year. We've been talking about it for a very long time, but let's not get this twisted. They have everything they need on the offensive side, and now Dan Quinn comes in, and Dan Quinn saying, I'm willing to tweak some things and make it interesting for opposing offenses. So everybody in Cowboys Nation should be frustrated and also curious to see what's going on with Dak.
Yeah, it's interesting. You listen to Dr. Terry Bradshaw, and he breaks down the injury and where it is in the shoulder. And that's one of the things that can get you into a lot of trouble, because every Cowboy fan in the world is now looking up at that specific injury, and everybody's weighing in on what it is and how long it should take. And now the speculation just gets fueled out of control. And that's why you ask guys not to talk about specifics of injuries. And you're right. You want your franchise quarterback back as quickly as possible. I remember my first year in New York, Chad Pennington was coming off an injury, and we had drafted Kellen Clemens, and we liked Kellen Clemens a lot, but he wasn't ready, and the difference between the two guys was significant. But we knew that we couldn't rush Chad back, but we wanted to see where he was based off of the injury that he had. And it happens all the time, Brandon, where Nick makes fun of me for my watch. I have a really nice watch that was given to me as a gift, and I had to get it serviced, and it took like 6 months. And he used to make fun of me for how long it took. And I said, that's fine, because I value that watch so much. And my watch wasn't worth $160 million, but it was worth a lot to me. And it's very different than the watch that I have on now. And so you look at it as a different value proposition when you're dealing with the franchise quarterback. And as much as you want him back out there, you realize if he disappears, the problems are so profound.
And Coach, is one of the reasons you drafted Kellen Clemens because Chad Pennington was coming off an injury, and because he had been banged up in his career?
Yeah, so Chad had an injury that was inconsistent in terms of how guys came back from it, and he ended up winning Comeback Player of the Year. But you didn't know going into the season what that was going to look like, because there wasn't enough track record with an injury like that. So that was one element, and then we also wanted a really solid young backup that could go in if Chad went down.
So that's the reason, and I wanted to just throw it back to you quickly here, Coach, that if I'm a Cowboys fan, I'm really concerned, but more than concerned, I'm a little irritated. Because now the shoulder injury is fluky. Like fluky in that he said he just didn't warm up right and he tweaked something. Fine, so be it. But he's coming off a massive injury, and the first major injury of his entire career. And every team has, what we have seen over the last few years is every team needs if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, a competent backup quarterback. I'll take my team, for instance. I bring it up, somewhat often. My team, that Matt Moore, the year the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, came in for Mahomes and beat the Vikings. And that's why the Chiefs had a bye. That's why they had home field advantage. And then in the playoffs last year, anything is possible. You have a competent backup quarterback when your guy goes down. Are you surprised that the Cowboys are like, hey, Ben DiNucci, Garrett Gilbert, Cooper Rush, trot out there, fellas, like that they didn't put a small, when you make that big of an investment, like I've seen your very nice watch, but your backup watch isn't a Seiko or Seiko, whatever. Like, it's nice. It's like, okay, it's not your Rolex, but it's nice. Like, no, but and so, like, are you surprised the Cowboys didn't make a bigger investment in backup quarterback this offseason?
It'd be like if you had the MVP of the league and you drafted a quarterback in the first round. That would make a lot of sense to me, because you want a really quality backup. You want a really quality backup behind them. That makes organizational sense, that you have someone that, if your great quarterback goes down, can lead you through that period where he's down. But what we make fun of and we target teams that do that. But then you're in a situation like this where your star quarterback could go down and you may not have a viable backup. And it's a terrible position to be in, especially if you've got a team that's positioned to win.
Coach, while we have her, let me throw it back at you. I always love getting your perspective when we are on these topics. Soft tissue injuries, right? You know, we always say, you know, grade 2 could be 4 to 6 weeks. You know, that's kind of the common thing that we throw out there. It's from a timetable standpoint, guys return back to play. So over my career, what I've always saw was if you rush these soft tissue injuries, you could make it worse, and now a guy is dealing with it for the entire year. So as a coach, how did you always approach guys when they had these soft tissue injuries? Because what Nick said, that's what it sounds like, right? Oh, I didn't warm up properly to throw the ball and something tweaked underneath my armpit. Hell, I had all 3 of those quarterbacks that you're talking about. I had so many quarterbacks. I had Pennington, I had Matt Moore, I had anything as possible, and I had so many others, and I've never seen any of those guys after practice with ice bags underneath their arm. Now, on the shoulder, absolutely. Rotator cuff, absolutely. So this is an interesting thing happening for Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. This could potentially turn into a season-nagging injury if they don't handle it right. So what was your approach to guys having these soft tissue injuries when you were coaching?
Well, it's interesting, Brandon, because in my life, I've only had soft tissue. I'd like to have some tissue that wasn't soft. So I've got a lot of experience in this. But when you look at this, and when you look at the track record of NFL training camps, one of the most dangerous periods is that first week of camp, because everybody's coming off of right. Working out in the off season, and as much as they're trying to do football-specific activities, it's totally different than when you have to react. Your body has to react without thinking about it because you're thinking about other things. So there's a significant amount of soft tissue injuries in that first week that you really try to manage with the way that you orchestrate practice. Now, once they do happen, you're absolutely right, Brandon. It can be a slippery slope where if you rush a guy back, suddenly he's dealing with it week in and week out, and you don't have any time to really give it what it needs to finally heal. So it's much better to take it slowly and let a guy ease into it and make sure he's 100% back, especially during the preseason, and especially with a guy who's a veteran and knows the system. You know, it's harder for young guys who are trying to make the team to not rush back from a soft tissue injury because they have no track record, and they could be cut because they've got no track record.
Coach, before we let you go, I want to get your take on this. Giants head coach Joe Judge made headlines this week when he had his team do push-ups and run laps following a brawl in training camp. Now, across town, Jets rookie head coach Robert Saleh was asked about those type of disciplinary tactics. Listen to what he had to say, then I'll ask you about it.
There's many ways to do it. There are many ways to do it. For me, you know, it's more of accountability. Try to create accountability with self rather than forcing accountability. These players are grown men, and that to give them the opportunity to correct it themselves will always happen first. Obviously, there's going to be coaching. You know, they're not trying to make the mistake. All we can do is help them understand how the mistake was made so they don't do it again.
Oh, that's a slightly different approach. Coach, this is your what? Go ahead.
I wish I could have been so zen as a rookie head coach, and I wish I could have taken that perspective. But here's the thing: is you want to be able to regulate self, and you want to promote that. But when your failure to regulate self affects 100 people and loses games, suddenly regulating self isn't as attractive as it is right now. And when a guy misses a practice or comes in late or whatever the different things that come up are, it's great to take that approach until suddenly you have to change that approach, and guys are saying, hold on a second, this is not who you said you are. And there's a lot of head coaches who go through that where they may start in a sort of softer tone and then try to get hard, and the players are like, yeah, we're not doing that. That's not who you said you are.
Coach, gosh.
It's not
old school. And I love it. But I love it. Listen, but I love it. I personally thrive in that environment. But, Coach, when you just look at leadership, I do hear what Coach is saying, and I kind of agree with him. Accountability to me, just start with the top. Like if you're going to do that, if you're going to be a coach that force guys to run, if you jumped off sides.